How's it going, everybody? It's Prod here, and today I'm bringing you guys a starter guide for Dark Souls 3 because I feel like there's probably going to be a pretty decent amount of newer players coming into the Soul series with Dark Souls 3 coming out here in about 2 days at the time of making this video, which I am extremely excited about for everybody to get to play this game now. I'm going to be talking about a couple of different things throughout the game, for example, classes, a bit of armor and your stats and stuff, and newer mechanics that are in Dark Souls 3 that haven't been in previous games. So let's jump right into the classes, where I'm not going to say much because I feel like I've talked about classes quite a bit. If you want to look really in-depth when it comes to the classes, go watch this video that's right there on the screen. I actually went over every single class, every single weapon that they come with, all their movesets for every single weapon, and the items that they come with. But that video will definitely help you decide more which class you might want to start off with in Dark Souls 3. So let's talk a little bit about classes though, because overall I'll say that classes don't really matter. In the long run, classes don't matter. They will just basically start you off in a point where you might want to start off from. For example, if you want to start off with nice armor, a pretty decent weapon, decent shield, you might want to start off with the knight because that comes with basically all of those things. If you want to start off as a sorcerer, you're obviously going to go with the sorcerer class. That's going to start off with high attunement, high intelligence, allowing you to use those spells that it comes with. And you're just going to start off from that point and just continue leveling on what you want to level up. If you want to go for more of a balanced all-around class, the Deprived is going to be the class you want to start off with. He starts off with 10 even across the board on level 1, which will allow you to actually put each point exactly where you want it to be, and it also has that added bonus of starting off at level 1, which will make those very early levels very cheap and only cost a couple of souls instead of, you know, costing more if you start off at something like level 8, level 10, somewhere around there. But don't let the starting classes intimidate you just because there's so many. You know, overall in the long run it won't really matter. So now, since we've talked about the classes for a little bit, let's go ahead and talk about the stats themselves for a little while. Let's go ahead and start off at the top with Vigor. This is going to be your health stat. This is one of the most important stats. What you guys are seeing right now is currently one of my characters, level 105 at 40 Vigor, because I think Vigor is extremely important, man. It allows you to take more hits, obviously have more HP. What you guys are seeing here on the screen right now is a little chart showing exactly what you're going to get up to level 50. There is a gradual soft cap at about level 35 where you start getting less for every 5 levels. So I feel like around 35 to 40 would be a perfect point to stop your Vigor at. But, you know, you can just keep going. It doesn't really matter if you're intending to play PvP and maybe you're looking to stay at around a certain soul level. Around 35 to 40 would be definitely a good point to stop, and it also helps you with your frost resistance, which is new to Dark Souls 3. Basically, if you get frostbitten, your stamina regenerates really slowly, basically kind of like if you're holding up a shield, maybe a little bit faster than that. But now let's go ahead and move on to attunement. This is where you're going to want to level up if you're going to go into sorceries, pyromancies, if you want to have a build focusing on that. You're going to want to have this pretty high, which will allow you to carry more spells, more pyromancy, stuff like that. And it also increases your actual focus points. So the more you level this up, the more focus points you will have. And focus points is also new to Dark Souls 3. It basically allows you to use spells. I'll go more talk a little bit more about it here in a bit, but basically allows you to use spells and weapon arts, which are also new. Moving on now to endurance. This is going to be your stamina bar. This is going to really help you out a lot when it comes to stamina. I currently have mine actually at 29 because I think it's pretty important. I've been mainly using like greatswords and stuff for my regular PvE. At the time of recording this, the server's not on yet, so I haven't gotten a chance to do PvP stuff, so I'm mainly focusing on the big weapons. And when using a big weapon, for example, a greatsword, ultra greatsword, you want to have enough stamina so that you can get more than one hit in at a time, because something like an ultra greatsword, one swipe will take away 50% of your stamina, 40% of your stamina. So you want to have that high enough. I like having enough stamina so that I can roll a couple times. Let's say I'm fighting a boss, roll a couple times, get one hit in, and then roll back, because that thing is gonna hit me if I'm very close to it. So you know, having good stamina is actually really important, especially in PvP as well. Stamina is really important. It will allow you to roll more. But one thing that I did notice is it doesn't seem like stuff like rolling takes much stamina in this game, so you could probably have it at around 30 and you would be set at around that point. Now on to Vitality, which is also another important stat in my opinion. This is going to help you with a bit of physical defense, but other stuff also, like I said right there, also helps with physical defense. What it's mainly going to do is your equip load is going to increase your maximum equip load, which will allow you to have more pieces of armor, heavier weapons without being encumbered and fat rolling. This game is different than some of the previous Souls games where there's usually been a fast roll, a mid roll, and a fat roll. This game has no mid-roll. It completely got rid of the mid-roll. The difference now is once you get into the medium weights of percentage of your maximum equip load, you go less of a distance whenever you roll. So for example, if you're at about 10% of your maximum equip load, you're going to go fast and you're going to go far. If you're in the middle, for example, if you're right on the edge of like 69, because once you get to 70%, that's when you start fat rolling. If you're right on the edge of like 69, you're still going to go about the same amount of speed as if you were in 10%, except you would go less of a distance. But the crazy thing about Vitality is it doesn't seem to have a soft cap. So for example, every one level that you put into Vitality is going to give you 1 extra pound of equip load, and it does that all the way up to like level 50. It doesn't even slow down. So having that actually leveled up is actually going to help out if you want to use heavier weapons, great swords, ultra great swords, and actually use any piece of armor at all. Because if you have this very low and you want to use some of those weapons, it's going to be basically you naked using that weapon. Next up, we have Strength, and I'm going to go through these next few a little bit faster just because I think they're kind of self-explanatory. Strength is going to allow you to use the biggest and heaviest weapons, hardest hitting weapons in the game, such as great swords, ultra great swords. There's some weapons that require even up to 50 strength to use, but those are like the biggest weapons in the game. It's quite a bit to invest into a stat, but if you're going for a strength build, that's going to be totally okay with you. And if you're not looking to get the stat all the way up that high, it's totally okay because it'll still give you some attack power on your weapons, making your weapons more powerful, even if it's somewhere around where I have it right here, like 30. Moving on to Dexterity, which is a little bit similar to Strength in the sense that you need a lot of Dexterity if you want to wield specific advanced weapons such as Katanas. Some Katanas require quite a bit of Dexterity. Later on in the game, you'll find more weapons that require a lot of Dexterity, and it also improves your attack power, similar to Strength, but I'm guessing not as much as Strength actually would if you leveled up Strength looking for mainly attack power. But this is also an important stat if you're going to be looking to use more of a magic build, because this is going to decrease the amount of time that it takes to cast a spell, which sometimes can take quite a bit. And just like a little added bonus, it also reduces the damage that you take when falling. Moving on now to another really important stat for a magic build, Intelligence. This is probably going to be your main thing that you level up. If you're going for a magic build, some of the spells really later on in the game can be quite high in the amount of intelligence that it actually takes to use. But this also affects pyromancies, but it's not like it focuses on pyromancies because pyromancies is affected by both faith and intelligence. There's going to be some pyromancies that you require faith. There's others that you're going to need intelligence to use. So it's going to be different most of the time. Moving on now to the miracles. Faith is what you're going to need a lot of if you're going to want to use stuff like buffs. There's later on weapons like Dark Moon Blade, Lightning Blade that are really powerful buffs for your weapon, which you're going to need about 30 faith for. This is obviously where you're going to want to level up if you're going for more of a miracle build. There's also pyromancies. Like I said, pyromancies are both shared by faith and intelligence. There's some pyromancies that are also going to require a specific amount of faith, which you'll also be able to use if you're going for a faith build. Now onto the final stat, Luck. This is a newer stat to Dark Souls. It was in Demon Souls, but it's basically new for a lot of people, including myself. What this does is actually increase your item discovery and ups your bleeding and poison capabilities. That doesn't mean that it actually helps with resistance. It means that whenever you use a bleed weapon, a poison weapon, it's going to actually do more bleed and poison damage. There is also a new gem in Dark Souls 3 called the Hollow Gem, which actually you can put into weapons to make them basically like a lucky weapon. Anytime you're using that weapon, it'll increase your item discovery, so you'll basically be able to have a better item discovery when using a weapon infused with hollow gems. There's also apparently supposed to be maybe some weapons or even spells that scale with luck, but I don't think I've really found any. If you have, or if you know of any, please go ahead and leave it in the comment section. But this is really useful, I think, very early on, because if you're, have no weapons, early on you're going to discover a few weapons, but later on it's kind of useless. Once you get at least through the first new game, it's going to be kind of useless. You could probably reallocate those stats into something else, but you could put it on early if you want to have some lucky drops. So now that we've had a nice talk about stats on Dark Souls 3, I'm going to talk about some of the new mechanics, focus points, weapon arts, embers, stuff of that nature. Let's start off with weapon arts. Weapon arts are the new type of attacks in Dark Souls 3. You use them by pressing left trigger. Usually those can change from weapon to weapon. It could be a regular move like this, or once you do a different variety, for example, if you press right trigger as you're holding left trigger, he could do a completely different move just like that. It varies from weapon to weapon. There's different types of weapon arts. Most weapons fall under a specific category of weapon arts like stance, or there's some that actually give you your own little buffs. For example, this right here gives you a nice damage boost while also improving your physical defense. There's some that give you extra armor. There's some that give you extra poise that allow you to take more hits without getting staggered, and then dish out your own big move. There are some weapons that you get that have weapon arts completely unique to that specific weapon. Those usually come later on in the game, but like I said, it's usually different for most weapons. The way you use these weapon arts is using that little blue bar right under the big red health bar. That's the new little meter. It's called the focus meter. That basically allows you to use weapon arts, and it allows you to use spells. Instead of having a specific number of spells that you can carry at a time, that little blue bar allows you to use one spell as many times as you want, as long as you have focus meter. The way you fill up your focus meter is using the Ashen Estus Flask, which is also a new item in Dark Souls 3. It's similar to the regular Estus Flask. Instead of getting health, you just get focus meter. You start the game off with about 3 or 4 Estus Flasks. I don't remember how many, but as the game continues, you collect these things called Estus Shards, and you bring that to a specific NPC at your main hub, and once you're in there, you continuously gain more. By the end of your game, you should have 15 if you collected every single Estus shard. But the cool thing is, completely depending on your build and what you want to do with your build, you can allot how many Estus you want on each. So for example, you can carry 10 regular Estus Flasks while having 5 Ashen Estus Flasks. If you're going to be having a more of a magic build, you could have way more Ashen Estus Flasks, and it's really cool. Right here is exactly where you change it at the main hub, and I really like this feature because it's completely dependent on what you want to have. If you want to continuously use weapon arts as much as you want, if you want to have a magic build, it's completely up to you how many you can use on each side. So I very much like this added addition. So the last thing I want to talk about in this video are embers, because I think embers are very important to get right. So as you can see, my health bar right there is pretty big. That is not my original health bar though, because I have an original health bar of about 40 vigor, and that is already pretty high, but whenever you use an ember, it actually gives you an extra little bit of health. I think it's about 20% of whatever you have your health already at, it actually gives you that bit. So whenever you die, when you're in ember form, you lose your ember form, meaning that you lose that little bit of health that the ember actually gave you. And I feel like people have been talking about Dark Souls 3. I've seen a lot of people say that whenever you die, you actually lose 20% of your health, similar to Dark Souls 2, where whenever you died, you actually lose a little bit of health. But that's not the case. That right there is my original form, and whenever I use an ember, it just gives me a little bit of extra health. So I just want to let you guys know that that is the case. You don't continuously lose health if you die. One thing I will say though is that embers are fairly rare. You find them scattered throughout the world. You could buy a few from NPCs. Sometimes you get lucky drops where enemies drop embers. And the last one is by invading. Whenever you invade somebody and you kill them, you actually get their ember. So if you're not planning on invading, I feel like they can be pretty rare because the NPCs don't have an infinite amount. They have a certain amount, and then once you buy them out, they're gone for good. But there are a certain amount of NPCs that you continuously get a few from them, but they're not ever, infinite. You never have like an infinite amount that you can just continuously keep buying. So I would say if you're in ember form, be a bit cautious. You might have a huge health bar, but losing that ember is like really precious, especially for me, man. I was really cautious whenever I was in ember form just to make sure not to lose it, because I know that there's a finite amount of embers you could find throughout the world. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Man, it was a long one. I hope you guys leave a like if you ended up making it this far. But anyways, I'll talk to you guys later. Hopefully you guys have a lot of fun with Dark Souls 3 as much as I did. But that's about it. Talk to you guys later. Peace, everybody.